The firing range on Galactic Defense Station Orpheus smelled like ionized metal, and the particular disappointment of watching recruits fail. I, Krelvosa of the Terronian Imperial Guard, stood with my arms crossed, observing the latest batch fumble through basic marksmanship. 43 cycles of military instruction had taught me one universal truth. Every species thought they were exceptional until the targets started moving. "Next shooter," barked Instructor Gormath. That was when she walked up. The human female stood perhaps 5'7", maybe 130 pounds if you counted her equipment. Her dark brown hair was pulled back in a ponytail that swayed as she approached the firing station. Her name tag read, Tors M. What caught my attention was not her small stature. It was the rifle. The weapon looked like someone had bolted a communications array to a standard issue frame, then added optics that belonged on an observatory telescope. A bipod extended from the front. Strange cylindrical devices protruded from mounting points I did not recognize. The scope alone probably cost more than my ceremonial armor. Recruit Vin, beside me in the observation booth, let out a whistling laugh through his breathing slits. "Look at the human's toy. Did she raid a supply depot?" "Compensation," muttered Sergeant Thax, a four-armed Rigelian. "Weak species always bring the fanciest equipment." I said nothing, but my mandibles clicked. Maya Tors began setting up her position, deployed the bipod, adjusted it, readjusted it, checked it again, pulled out a small electronic device and aimed it downrange, consulted a worn notebook covered in handwritten calculations. "This is a timed qualification," Gormath announced. 4 minutes, 12 targets at varying distances, begin when ready. She did not rush. She settled behind her weapon with a deliberation that would have meant death in real combat. Humans lack the natural stability of a four-legged stance, yet she seemed to melt into the ground, becoming part of the surface. Vin leaned toward me, voice dropping to a whisper. 20 credits says she hits less than half. 30 says she requests a restart after the first miss, Thax added. I studied the human more carefully. Something about her stillness felt wrong. Not wrong, different, predatory, but humans were not predators. Omnivores, scavengers, persistence hunters at best. No claws, no fangs, no armored skin. "Ready," Maya said. "Come." The first target appeared at 200 meters. Standard pop-up silhouette, 3 seconds exposure, easy. The sound that erupted from her rifle was unexpected, not the sharp crack of a standard kinetic weapon, a deeper report, the kind that punched the air itself. Before my secondary eyelids could fully blink, the target registered a perfect centermass hit. Target 2 appeared immediately, 300 meters, angled position. The rifle barked again, hit. Vin's whistling stopped. Targets 3 through 5 appeared simultaneously at varying distances between 150 and 400 meters. Maya's movements became fluid. Acquire, breathe, press, cycle. Acquire again. 3 shots, 3 hits, all center mass. "Lucky," Thax muttered, but his secondary arms had stopped gesturing. Target 6 at 500 meters, partially obscured behind a barrier. Only a small portion of the silhouette showed. Maya fired, hit. Targets 7, 8, 9, distances now pushing 600 meters. Some appeared for only 2 seconds. Crack, 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 hit, hit, hit. I found myself leaning forward. The human was not simply shooting. She was reading the environment. Before each shot, her breathing would pause, her body would settle. The weapon would discharge at what seemed like the exact optimal moment. Target 10 flashed onto the range at 700 meters, a distance where atmospheric conditions, projectile drop, and a dozen other factors turned shooting into advanced mathematics. Maya consulted nothing, no computer, no heads-up display, no targeting assistance. She made a minute adjustment to her scope, settled, fired. The target registered a hit in the primary scoring zone. "Impossible," Vin said flatly. "The wind variance alone at that distance." "She is compensating manually," I heard myself say. "Look at her barrel position before each shot. She is adjusting for conditions in real time." Target 11 appeared at 800 meters, moving laterally at combat speed. This target was designed to humble overconfident recruits. Most shooters never reached this far. Maya tracked the movement. Her rifle followed smoothly, almost lazily. For a moment that stretched too long, she did not fire. The target continued its lateral movement, eating up her available time. Then, in the half-second before it would have disappeared, she pressed the trigger. Through my optical implants, I watched the projectile trace. The round seemed to lead the target impossibly, arcing through empty space where nothing existed until the target moved into that exact space. The impact registered as a perfect central nervous system hit. Silence filled the observation booth. Target 12 appeared, 900 meters, elevated position, wind gusts visible through atmospheric sensors, target exposure time 2.5 seconds. Maya chambered her final round. Her eyes settled behind the scope. Her breathing slowed until I wondered if she had achieved some form of metabolic suspension. The rifle fired. For an agonizing moment, nothing happened. At that distance, the round's flight time was perceptible, a brief eternity where physics and ballistics engaged in their dance. Then the target registered. Not just a hit, a perfect, absolute centermass impact flagged by the computer as a precision shot. 12 for 12, perfect score, 0 misses. Maya stood, cleared her weapon with practiced efficiency, turned toward the booth where Gormath stood with his jaw hanging open. Qualification complete, sir. Gormath stared at his tablet, then at Maya, then back at his tablet. This must be a system error. Nobody shoots perfect on the advanced qualification. Even our top Velcron sharpshooters average 9 out of 12. Would you like me to run it again, sir? Maya asked. I have plenty of ammunition. That will not be necessary. We all turned. Chief Instructor Dalvin stood in the doorway, a Cassarian war hero with 600 combat missions to his name. His scaled hide bore scars from 4 wars. His optical implant glowed with active tactical streams. He descended to the range floor, his attention fixed entirely on Maya and her ridiculous rifle. May I? Maya hesitated, a flash of something possessive crossing her features. Then she engaged the safety, removed the magazine, and handed the weapon over. Dalvin examined it with the kind of reverence usually reserved for historical artifacts. His clawed digits traced the modifications, the custom components, the worn finish that spoke of countless hours of use. This is a precision instrument, not standard issue, not even close. I built it, sir, Maya said, assembled it from components. The barrel is a Kreger match grade in 6.5 Creedmoor. The action is a custom surgeon build. The stock is Macmillan, bedded and reinforced. The scope is a Schmidt and Bender with custom turrets I had machined for my specific ballistic profile. Dalvin's mandibles clicked slowly. A human civilian had access to these components. Maya's expression shifted, not quite a smile. Where I come from, precision rifle shooting is a discipline, a sport for some, a lifestyle for others. I have been doing this since I was 12. 12 cycles, Vin interjected from the booth. Your species allows juveniles access to weapons. 12 years, Maya corrected. And yes, supervised, obviously, my father was a competitive shooter. He taught me that shooting is not about the weapon. It is about understanding physics, reading the environment, controlling your own biology. The rifle is just the tool that expresses that knowledge. Dalvin handed the weapon back, noticeably more respect than he showed most recruits. How many rounds through this rifle? Through this build, about 47,000. Through various rifles over my lifetime, probably north of 300,000. I stopped counting after the first 100,000. The numbers landed like artillery shells. I had served with enough military specialists to understand what those numbers represented. That was not casual hobby shooting. That was professional-level dedication. Years, perhaps decades, of perfecting a single skill to an almost obsessive degree. Your groupings at 700 meters, Dalvin continued. What is your average? Depends on conditions. Calm day, half-minute of angle, so about 3.5 inches. Windy day, maybe 3/4 mower if I read it right. 5 inches if I am having a bad day. More silence. Thax's secondary arms had begun an involuntary tremor, a Rigelian stress response. Dalvin's optical implant cycled through colors. Most military sharpshooters consider 1 minute of angle at 500 meters to be acceptable combat accuracy. Different standards, sir, Maya shrugged slightly. In precision rifle competition back home, 1 MOA is beginner level. Top shooters run quarter MOA guns and red wind down to half-mile-per-hour variations. When your competition is decided by fractions of an inch at 1,000 yards, you either get very good or you go broke buying ammunition while getting humiliated. She said it without arrogance, just stating facts, which somehow made it worse. Gormath finally found his voice. You are assigned to standard infantry training. Your file says nothing about specialist qualifications. Because I do not have any, sir, not military ones anyway. A few civilian competition wins, some instructor certifications, but I joined the GDF as a basic recruit. Figured I would let my performance speak for itself rather than making claims I could not back up. Dalvin's mandibles clicked in approval. A wise approach. Too many recruits arrive with inflated credentials and deflated abilities. He paused, his optical implant focused on Maya with unsettling intensity. Tell me, recruit, have you ever engaged a living target? The question hung in the air. Maya's expression did not change, but something in her posture shifted. A slight stiffening, a barely perceptible tension. No, sir, paper, steel, and reactive targets only. I have never pointed a weapon at anything I was not willing to destroy, and I have only been willing to destroy inanimate objects. The discipline I learned was about precision and control. Not killing. Good. Dalvin nodded slowly. Then you understand the weight of what you can do. That is more important than the skill itself. He turned to Gormath. I am appropriating this recruit. She will be reassigned to the Advanced Marksmanship Program pending full evaluation. Sir, the advanced program is for candidates with specialist training, Gormath protested weakly. She has only been here for 3 weeks. And in 3 weeks, she has demonstrated more fundamental proficiency than most of your graduates achieve in 6 months. I will handle the administrative details. Tours, report to Range 7 tomorrow at 600. Bring your rifle and enough ammunition for a full diagnostic session. Yes, sir. As Maya collected her equipment, Dalvin leaned close to Gormath. I had enhanced auditory sensors. I heard every word. Only snipers move like that. Only people who have spent years behind a scope understand stillness that way. The humans have been breeding specialists without even trying. I wish I could tell you that was the end of it. It wasn't. That whisper changed something, not just for me, but for how the whole galaxy would come to see humanity. Stay close. 47,000 rounds, I repeated quietly, watching Maya pack her equipment. Through one rifle. Vin's breathing slits had gone still. Thax's forearms hung at unnatural angles. Even Gormath had stopped protesting. Dalvin walked past us without a word, his optical implant still cycling through colors I had never seen on a Caesarian. He paused at the observation booth door. Krelvosa, your tactical assessment. Tomorrow, my office. He left. The range fell into uncomfortable silence as the next recruit stepped up to the line, a Velcron with all the proper military bearing and none of Maya's quiet confidence. He managed 6 hits out of 12. Above average. It looked pathetic. That night, I could not sleep. Not because of the stimulants in the station's recycled air. Not because of the distant hum of the life support systems. Because of the numbers. 47,000. Not a soldier's count. Not a specialist's. A civilian's. A human who had chosen, repeatedly, obsessively, to spend her personal resources on becoming better at a skill most species reserved for their most elite warriors. I accessed the human cultural database, something I had never bothered to do before. The terminal in my quarters flickered to life. I typed marksmanship, civilian, competition. The results made my secondary eyelids snap shut. Footage from something called the Precision Rifle Series Championship. Humans engaging targets at distances exceeding 2,000 meters, not military snipers, civilians, accountants, electricians, retail workers, people who paid their own way to spend weekends lying in dirt, reading wind currents, and calculating bullet trajectories. For trophies, for points, for fun. I watched a video of a human female, younger than Maya, maybe 16 cycles, hit a target at 1,700 meters. She adjusted for the Coriolis effect, the curvature of her own planet. She did the math in her head, while her spotter called wind changes over a radio. Then she stood up, shook hands with her competitors, and ate a sandwich. What kind of species does that? I closed the terminal, opened it again, searched deeper. The data was worse than I feared. Competition shooting in human culture spanned hundreds of years. They had refined it into disciplines: Bencrest, F-Class, PRS, NRL, Olympic smallbore, metallic silhouette, cowboy action, three-gun, each with its own equipment, its own rules, its own obsessive subculture. They had magazines dedicated to the science of bullet flight. They had podcasts about wind-reading techniques. They had YouTube channels, a human video platform, where hobbyists posted tutorials on building rifles that could hold sub-quarter-minute accuracy. One video showed a man in a garage machining his own barrel from a blank piece of steel. He explained the process in the same tone someone might use to describe baking bread. A quarter-mower rifle is about consistency, he said, wiping grease off his hands. Same action, same barrel harmonics, same ammo lot. You don't need military funding, you just need patience. Patience. They had turned patience into a weapons system. I found Dalvin's office before my scheduled meeting. The door was open. He sat behind a desk covered in weapons components, his optical implant connected to a tactical display. Close the door. I obeyed. Your assessment, he said, no preamble. I stood at attention. Tyronian military protocol demanded it, even here. The human recruit, TORS, demonstrates marksmanship proficiency exceeding GDF Tier 2 standards. Her round count indicates approximately 8 years of dedicated practice. Her ability to manually compensate for environmental variables suggests training beyond standard competition, possibly mentorship from an experienced shooter. Her father, Dalvin said, I checked. Career competitive shooter, not military, never military. She learned from a civilian who learned from civilians. I processed that. So her skill is not unique. Not even close. Dalvin pulled up a holographic projection. Earth, 8 billion human population markers. I ran the numbers. If 0.1% of their population possesses marksmanship skills comparable to TOR's, that is 8 million individuals. 8 million potential precision shooters. The number hung in the air between us. Most of them have never held a military weapon, Dalvin continued, but they have held civilian equivalents. They understand ballistics, wind compensation, trigger control, breathing discipline. They have spent years, in some cases decades, refining these skills. For recreation, yes, Dalvin's mandibles clicked. We have spent 400 cycles building military doctrines around physical advantages, strength, speed, armor, technology. We assumed species without those advantages would fill support roles. Humans have physical disadvantages, I said. They do, but they have spent thousands of years figuring out how to kill things that are bigger, stronger, and more dangerous than themselves, from a distance, with tools they built themselves. I thought about Maya's rifle, the custom action, the hand-machined turrets, the notebook full of ballistic calculations. She built that weapon to extend her capabilities to their absolute maximum, then trained until she could use every fraction of performance it offered. Exactly, Dalvin's optical implant dimmed. And if human military doctrine follows the same pattern, if they approach warfare with the same obsessive refinement they apply to their hobbies, then we have underestimated them, catastrophically. He pulled up another projection, casualty estimates, theoretical scenarios where human snipers were deployed in asymmetric engagements. The numbers were disturbing. One well-positioned human specialist could influence an entire battlefield without ever being detected. And if they worked in teams, if they coordinated, the math shifted even further. They are not stronger, Dalvin said. They are not faster, but they are willing to dedicate absurd amounts of time and resources to becoming exceptional at very specific tasks. They turn limitations into specializations. I returned to the firing ranges the next morning, not because I had to, because I needed to understand. Range 7 existed in a different reality than the standard qualification courses. Located in the station's eastern quadrant, it stretched across 12 kilometers of variable terrain, complete with atmospheric simulators, elevation changes, and environmental hazards that would make most recruits question their career choices. This was where the GDF trained its precision specialists, the shooters who could terminate hostile targets before conventional forces even knew combat had begun. I arrived at 5:30, 30 minutes before Maya's scheduled evaluation. Dalvin stood at the control station, manipulating holographic displays that showed the entire range layout. He noticed my approach, but said nothing, simply gesturing toward an observation position. "You are early, Krelvosa. I wish to observe, sir, if permitted." "Permitted. In fact, I would value your tactical assessment. You have combat experience in asymmetric warfare scenarios. Tell me what you see." What I saw moments later was Maya arriving with her rifle case and a backpack that probably weighed half her body mass. She wore standard utility fatigues. Her hair was again pulled back in that simple ponytail. Her expression was focused, but not tense. "Recruit Tours, reporting as ordered, sir." Dalvin returned her salute. "Today we determine if yesterday was exceptional performance or standard capability. You will engage targets at distances from 300 to 1,500 meters under various conditions. You will have limited time to calculate solutions. You will face scenarios designed to break concentration and test decision-making under pressure." "No questions, sir. Ready when you are." Dalvin pulled up the first scenario. Target Alpha, distance 420 meters, wind variable, gusting from southwest at 8 to 15 miles per hour. Target exposure 5 seconds. Engage when ready. Maya dropped into position with that same unsettling fluidity. Bipod deployed, scope settled, she chambered a round. For perhaps 3 seconds, she remained absolutely motionless. Then she fired. The target registered a hit in the primary elimination zone. Center mass slightly left to compensate for wind drift, Dalvin noted. Time from position to shot, 3.2 seconds, acceptable. Target beta, distance 670 meters. Wind calm, target partially obscured behind barrier, only head and upper torso visible. Assess and engage. Maya adjusted her position fractionally, 4 seconds, another perfect hit. Target gamma, distance 940 meters. Wind crosswind from east, 12 miles per hour sustained. Target moving left to right at walking speed. You have 8 seconds. I watched her breathing pattern change. She settled deeper into her position, tracking the target's movement. 6 seconds, 7. At 7.5, her rifle barked. The target registered a hit, just as it reached the edge of its travel zone. "Adequate," Dalvin said. His tone suggested he meant considerably more. "Now we increase difficulty. Multiple targets will appear simultaneously at various distances. You will prioritize based on threat assessment protocols. Targets designated red are high value, yellow are medium value, blue are low value. Your ammunition is limited. Choose wisely." The range erupted with targets. 12 of them scattered across 1,000 meters of varied terrain, 3 red, 4 yellow, 5 blue. Maya did not panic. She did not rush. Instead, she took 2 seconds to scan the entire field through her scope, then began engaging in a sequence that took me a moment to understand. She started with the furthest red target at 1,300 meters, the most difficult shot, the one most shooters would save for last if they attempted it at all. She fired, cycled her bolt, immediately acquired the second red target at 900 meters, fired again. The third red target appeared at only 400 meters, almost insultingly close after the previous shots. She put a round through it in less than 2 seconds. Then she methodically worked through the yellow targets, prioritizing by distance and exposure time rather than simple proximity. The blue targets she ignored completely until all higher-value threats were eliminated. Total time, 41 seconds. Total rounds expended, 9. Total hits, 9. Dalvin's mandibles clicked rapidly, extreme approval in Kassarian body language. You left 3 targets active. Low-value targets at close range, sir. In a real scenario, conventional infantry could handle those threats. My limited ammunition is better preserved for targets they cannot effectively engage. Correct assessment. Most recruits empty their weapons trying to hit everything, then find themselves useless when actual high-value targets appear. You think like an asset, not a soldier. Good. He paused, manipulating controls. Now we test your limitations. I am going to make you fail, Tors. I need to know where your breaking point exists. Understood, sir. I would expect nothing less. What followed was brutal. Dalvin threw scenarios at her that would have overwhelmed veteran shooters. Targets at extreme distances with minimal exposure time. Environmental conditions bordering on impossible. Situations requiring split-second decisions where every choice had consequences. Maya missed her first shot at the 90-minute mark. A target at 1,600 meters in gusting winds with only 3 seconds of exposure. Her round passed just left of the silhouette, missing by perhaps 6 inches. She did not curse, did not show frustration. She simply chambered another round and waited for the next target. Why did you miss? Misjudged the wind gradient at distance, sir. I compensated for wind speed at my position, but failed to account for increased velocity at the target's elevation. Environmental reading error, not mechanical. Correct, again, same target, same conditions. This time Maya took an extra second. Her eyes flicked to a small indicator on her scope, then back to the target. She fired, perfect hit. What changed? I used the mirage patterns visible through the scope to estimate wind speed at the target, rather than relying on conditions at my position. More accurate data input, better solution. Dalvin's optical implant cycled through colors. You can read mirage for wind estimation. That is an advanced technique rarely used outside specialized units. It is standard in long-range competition, sir. When you are shooting targets the size of dinner plates at a mile, you learn to read every environmental indicator available. Mirage, vegetation movement, dust patterns, even the way your own heat waves interact with the sight picture. Everything tells you something. I found myself leaning forward. This human spoke about reading an environment with the same intensity my species used when discussing territorial conquest. The evaluation continued for another hour. Moving targets, electronic countermeasures, simulated stress scenarios with combat sounds and incoming fire effects. Maya handled each challenge with the same methodical approach, sometimes succeeding brilliantly, occasionally failing, but always analyzing and adapting. At the 3-hour mark, Dalvin finally called a halt. Enough, clear your weapon and approach the observation station. Maya complied. Her movements showed the first signs of fatigue. Maintaining absolute stillness and concentration for 3 hours took a physical toll, regardless of species. When she reached the station, Dalvin pulled up a holographic display showing her complete performance metrics. 87% hit rate across all scenarios. Average time to first shot, 3.8 seconds. Longest successful engagement, 1,460 meters. Decision-making score, 92% optimal choices. He let the numbers settle. These would qualify you for immediate placement in our Tier 2 sniper program. Tier 1 remains reserved for candidates with actual combat experience, but your raw skill is undeniable. Maya said nothing. However, before I make any recommendations, I need you to answer something honestly. So, why are you here? Maya blinked, clearly not expecting the question. You possess skills that took years to develop. Skills with no practical civilian application in human society, unless I am misinformed. You could have remained on Earth, competed in your sport, lived comfortably. Instead, you joined a military organization, left your planet, volunteered for an infantry position that would never utilize your actual capabilities. She was silent for a long moment. Why? Maya looked at the floor for a moment. When she looked up, her face was different, softer, not less dangerous, just human. Because precision rifle shooting taught me something, sir. Dalvin waited. It taught me that humans are not naturally gifted at very much. We are not the strongest, not the fastest, not the toughest. We do not have built-in weapons or armor or enhanced senses. She gestured to her rifle. What we have is the ability to learn, to practice, to take something we are mediocre at and become exceptional through sheer dedication. 17,000 hours, Dalvin said quietly. That is what 47,000 rounds represents. Approximately 17,000 hours of practice. 2 full years of your life, awake and breathing, behind a scope. Closer to 3 years if you count dry firing at home, reading wind without shooting, analyzing my own mistakes. Why? My father started me when I was 12. He was not a soldier either. He was a machinist who loved shooting. He said something to me once that I never forgot. She paused. He said, Maya, the world is full of people who were born better than you. Faster, stronger, smarter. You cannot outrun that. But you can outwork it. You can choose one thing and refuse to be mediocre at it. And one day, the people who were born better will look at you and wonder how you caught up. Dalvin's mandibles were still. So I chose one thing. I was never the strongest kid, never the fastest. But when I was behind a rifle, none of that mattered. The rifle did not care how strong I was. It only cared if I understood it, if I respected it, if I put in the work. Maya looked at Dalvin directly. When humanity joined the GDF, when I heard we were the new species trying to prove ourselves worthy of inclusion, I knew I had to be part of it. Because if there is one thing humans understand, it is being the underdog, being the species that has to work twice as hard to earn half the respect. She let that settle. This rifle does not make me special. Thousands of humans can shoot as well as I can. Some shoot better. What makes the difference is that we, as a species, do not accept our limitations as permanent. We see a challenge and we obsess over it until it stops being a challenge. Dalvin regarded her silently for a long moment. Then he looked at me. Krelvosa, your assessment. I chose my words carefully. In Turonian tactical doctrine, we classify threats by immediate danger versus sustainable danger. A shock trooper presents immediate danger through overwhelming force. A sniper presents sustainable danger, the ability to inflict casualties consistently over extended periods while remaining undetected and unengaged. I looked at Maya. If Taurus represents a standard example of human marksmanship potential, then we have categorized humans incorrectly in our threat assessments. Explain, Dalvin commanded. We assumed humans would fill support roles, technical positions, areas where their lack of physical advantages would not matter. But if their cultural development has produced a population with widespread familiarity with precision weapons, if they have literally millions of civilians who practice marksmanship as recreation, then they represent a strategic asset we did not anticipate. I paused. Not as frontline troops, as force multipliers. One human sniper positioned correctly could influence an entire battlefield without ever being detected. Maya looked uncomfortable with the analysis, but she did not contradict it. Dalvin's mandibles clicked. An astute observation. The Galactic Defense Force has operated for 400 cycles under certain assumptions about how different species contribute to military effectiveness. Humans have been here for less than 10 cycles. We placed them where we thought they would fit, not where they might excel. He turned back to Maya. You are reassigned, effective immediately. You will join the Advanced Reconnaissance Training Program. Your skills will be documented, analyzed, and used to develop new training protocols. You may also be asked to instruct other recruits, human and non-human, in precision marksmanship techniques. Just one question, sir. Will I see actual deployment, Or am I being turned into a training curiosity? Dalvin's expression shifted into what I recognized as a predatory smile. Oh, you will deploy tours. The galaxy is a dangerous place, and specialists with your capabilities do not sit in classrooms for long. But first, we need to understand if you are an anomaly, or if humanity has been hiding an entire military doctrine in plain sight, disguised as sporting competitions and civilian hobbies. Maya shook her head slowly. I am not an anomaly, sir. I am just someone who took a hobby seriously. Back home, there are competition shooters who make me look like a beginner. There are hunters who have been reading wind and estimating range since they were children. There are military veterans who forgot more about fieldcraft than I will ever learn. She met his gaze. If you want to see what humans can really do, wait until some of them start arriving with actual combat experience. Combined with our cultural background in marksmanship, the implications settled over the observation station like a heavy gravity field. I thought about Earth, 8 billion humans. If even a tiny fraction possessed skills comparable to Maya, if even 0.1% had spent years refining their ability to place projectiles with precision, that was 8 million potential snipers. 8 million individuals who could influence battlefields from distances where conventional forces could not respond. 8 million quiet, patient, dedicated shooters who treated killing at long range as a solvable problem, not an impressive feat. Dalvin seemed to be having similar thoughts. Dismissed. Tours report to Building 7, Room 312, tomorrow at 800 for in-processing into the advanced program. Bring your gear and prepare for an extended training cycle. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. She saluted, collected her equipment, departed with the same unpretentious efficiency she had displayed throughout. After she left, Dalvin turned to me with an expression I had never seen on his scarred features. Uncertainty, mixed with something that might have been concern. We marked her rifle setup, he said quietly. All those attachments, all that customization, we assumed it was compensation for inadequacy. But it was not compensation, it was optimization. She built that weapon to extend her capabilities to their absolute maximum, then trained until she could utilize every fraction of performance it offered. Yes, sir. And if human military doctrine follows similar patterns, if they approach warfare with the same obsessive refinement they apply to their hobbies, then we have underestimated them, catastrophically. He pulled up a star map showing human-controlled space. It was not impressive compared to the major powers, just a few dozen systems, a relatively new addition to galactic civilization. I am going to recommend a comprehensive review of human capabilities, not just military records, cultural analysis. If their civilians treat complex skills as entertainment, what does that tell us about their potential military applications? If a random recruit with no formal military training can perform at specialist levels, what happens when they start sending us their actual professionals? I had no answer. None of us did. 6 months passed. I did not forget about Maya tours, but the demands of the station, training cycles, tactical briefings, the endless bureaucracy of a multi-species military pushed her to the back of my mind. Until I saw her again. She stood at the center of Range 7, not as a recruit, as an instructor. The insignia on her collar was different now. Certified GDF Sniper Instructor. She wore the same utility fatigues, the same ponytail, the same calm expression. But something had changed. She was leading a class of 20 recruits. 15 of them were non-human. I stopped to observe. The recruits looked skeptical, just as we all had. This small human was going to teach them advanced combat techniques. Then she took them to the line. The first thing you need to understand, Maya said, is that precision shooting is not about strength. It is not about having better eyesight or faster reflexes. It is about controlling variables. She picked up her rifle. Your weapon is a variable. Your ammunition is a variable. The wind is a variable. The temperature is a variable. Your own heartbeat is a variable. The goal is not to eliminate variables. You cannot. The goal is to understand them well enough that they stop being surprises. She looked at the recruits. The second thing you need to understand is that humans are not naturally good at this. We have no special eyes, no special hands, no special anything. We just refuse to stop practicing. A Rigelian recruit raised a hand. You expect us to believe that a species with no natural advantages became the galaxy's most dangerous marksman through stubbornness. Maya smiled, not a nice smile. I do not expect you to believe anything. Watch. She settled behind her rifle. A target appeared at the far end of the range, 1,800 meters, the kind of distance where most species did not even bother engaging. Maya did not consult a computer, did not check a range card. She looked at the target, looked at the wind flags scattered across the terrain, pressed her cheek against the stock. 3 seconds. She fired. The round struck the target, center mass. A second target appeared, same distance. Different angle, she fired again, hit. Third target, 1,800 meters, moving laterally across the range. She tracked, waited, fired. The round struck as the target reached the center of its travel zone. 3 shots, 3 hits. The Rigelian's arm slowly lowered. Maya stood up. That was not talent. That was 47,000 rounds of practice. That was my father teaching me to read wind when I was 12 years old. That was years of missing until I stopped missing. She gestured to the targets. You do not need to be human to shoot like this. You just need to be willing to be bad at something for a very long time, until you are not bad anymore. The skepticism was gone. The recruits leaned forward, suddenly eager to learn from this unassuming human who had just made the impossible look routine. I watched for another hour. Maya moved among the recruits, correcting grips, adjusting stances, explaining ballistic calculations in terms anyone could understand. She was patient, methodical, never raised her voice. But there was steel underneath the patience. Your breathing is wrong, she told a Velcron recruit. You are holding air in your lungs, that creates micro-movements. Exhale, let your body settle, then press the trigger. The Velcron tried again, hit the target. Better, now do it 50 more times, until you do not have to think about it. 50 more times. Not 5, 50. That was the difference, I realized. Other instructors taught technique, Maya taught obsession. She did not want them to understand precision shooting. She wanted them to become it. I stayed until the end of the session. The recruits filed out, exhausted but focused. Some practiced breathing exercises as they walked. Others murmured ballistic calculations to themselves. Maya had changed them, not through intimidation or inspiration, through the simple weight of demonstration. She was packing her rifle when I approached. Recruit tours. She looked up. It's instructor tours now, actually, but you can call me Maya. I inclined my head. Krelvosa. I remember, you were in the observation booth during my qualification. Yes. Why are you here? Because I have spent 43 cycles training soldiers. I have instructed 17 different species in the art of combat, and I have never seen anyone shoot the way you do. Maya zipped her rifle case. Then you haven't watched enough human competition footage. Perhaps not, but I have watched enough to be concerned. She paused, concerned. Your species treats marksmanship as recreation. You have millions of civilians who possess skills that most militaries would consider elite, and you have done this for centuries, quietly, obsessively, without anyone noticing. I stepped closer. My question is not about your capabilities, Maya. My question is about your intentions. What will humans do when the galaxy finally realizes what you are? She was silent for a long moment. Then she sat down on an equipment crate and gestured for me to join her. Can I tell you something? Something I haven't told anyone here. I said. My father died 3 years ago, not in a shooting accident, not in combat, cancer, slow, quiet, the kind of death that gives you time to think. She looked at her hands. The last conversation we had, he asked me what I wanted to do with my life. I told him I wanted to shoot, not for trophies anymore, for something that mattered. And he said. Maya smiled, the first real smile I had seen from her. He said, then go somewhere that needs you. The galaxy is big, Maya. Somewhere out there, there's a species that doesn't understand what humans can do. Show them. She looked at me. So that's what I'm doing. Not conquering, not proving superiority, just showing. The galaxy spent 400 cycles building assumptions about who belongs on the battlefield. Maybe it's time someone showed them a different way. I processed this. You do not see yourself as a weapon. I am a person who is very good with a weapon. There's a difference. And the other humans, the 8 million potential shooters, do they see themselves as weapons? Maya shook her head. They see themselves as hobbyists, competitors, hunters, target shooters. Some of them will never pick up a military rifle in their lives, but if the galaxy threatens their homes, their families, their species. She stood up. Then you will find out what happens when 8 million hobbyists decide to become soldiers. And I promise you, it will not look like anything you have trained for. She slung her rifle case over her shoulder and walked toward the exit. At the door, she paused. Good night, Krelvosa, and thank you for watching. Most species don't bother. She left. I sat on the equipment crate for a long time after she was gone. The range was empty now. The lights had dimmed to their nighttime setting. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear the hum of the station's life support systems. Maya's words repeated in my mind. 8 million hobbyists decide to become soldiers. It will not look like anything you have trained for. I thought about Dalvin's casualty projections, the theoretical scenarios where human snipers changed the math of entire battlefields. I had assumed those projections were worst case, the nightmare scenario that would never happen. Now I realized my mistake. The nightmare scenario was not humans becoming soldiers. The nightmare scenario was humans staying civilians. Because a civilian with a rifle, 47,000 rounds of practice, and something to protect was not a soldier. She was something worse. She was someone who had nothing to prove and everything to lose. I accessed the human cultural database one more time. Not for tactical data, for something else. I searched for father and shooting and daughter. Thousands of results. Stories of fathers teaching daughters to shoot. Videos of competitions where young women outshot men twice their age. Articles about multi-generational shooting families, grandparents, parents, children, all gathered on a range, passing down skills that had taken decades to refine. This was not a military culture. It was something stranger, something more durable. A culture of transmission. Knowledge passed from parent to child, not because the child would need it for war, but because the parent loved the discipline and wanted to share it. The weapon was secondary. The relationship was primary. And yet, that relationship, that love, that patience, that obsessive attention to detail, had produced the most dangerous civilian population in the galaxy. Not because humans were violent, because humans were thorough. The next morning, I returned to Dalvin's office. He was reviewing training schedules, his optical implant cycling through data streams. He did not look up when I entered. Your assessment of Tors was correct, I said. I know. Her motivations are not military. She is not seeking glory or advancement. She is fulfilling a promise to her deceased father. Dalvin looked up. Does that make her more dangerous or less? I considered the question. More a soldier fights for orders. She fights for memory. Orders can be countermanded. Memory cannot. Dalvin's mandibles clicked slowly. That is what I was afraid of. He pulled up a holographic projection, a map of human-controlled space, 8 billion markers, each one a potential variable we had never accounted for. I have submitted my recommendation to command, a full cultural and tactical reassessment of human military potential. It will take years, maybe decades. And until then, Dalvin's optical implant dimmed. Until then, we watch, we learn, and we pray that the humans who join our military continue to be like Tors, patient, disciplined, reluctant to kill. He met my gaze. Because if the wrong human decides to become a soldier, if someone with her skills and none of her restraint. He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. 6 months later, I watched Maya Torres lead her class through the final exercise of their training cycle. 20 recruits, 15 non-human, all of them now capable of engaging targets at distances that would have seemed impossible a year ago. Maya stood at the edge of the range, her rifle slung across her back, watching her students with quiet satisfaction. One of them, a young Tyronian, barely out of basic, approached her. "Instructor Torres, may I ask a question?" "Go ahead. You always say that precision shooting is not about natural talent, but you make it look effortless. How many years did it take you to reach this level?" Maya considered the question. 17 years, and I am still not at the level I want to be. The Tyronian blinked. 17 years, and you are still not satisfied. No, because there is always something new to learn, a new technique, a new way to read wind, a new rifle build that might be half a minute more accurate. The moment you think you have mastered it is the moment you stop improving. She looked at the young Tyronian. "So here is my advice to you. Forget about talent, forget about species, forget about what everyone else can do. Pick one thing, just one, and refuse to be mediocre at it." She smiled. "Give it 17 years. Then come back and tell me if you still think I make it look easy." The Tyronian saluted and walked away. Maya watched him go. Then she turned and saw me standing at the edge of the range. "Kralvosa, you're still here." "I am." "Why?" I considered the question. "Because I am still trying to understand." Maya nodded slowly. "Then watch." She unshouldered her rifle, settled into position, fired at a target I had not even seen, 2,000 meters distant, half obscured by a terrain feature, exposed for less than 2 seconds. The round struck center mass. She stood up. "That was for my father." The rifle's report echoed across the range. That same deep, punching sound. But now it sounded like something else. A door closing on 4 centuries of assumptions.